Without further ado, I ask you to join me in warm welcome our guest of tonight, Professor Jeffrey Sachs.
Wow. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Fook. It's wonderful to be back here because we've had fantastic discussions over the last 10 years here. And please know how incredibly innovative CIRSD is and how incredibly foresighted it was of Vuk to put together the two themes of international relations and sustainable development. He had a little bit of an inside track because he led for the whole world the Sustainable Development Initiative, which brought us the Sustainable Development Goals, so that's quite a historic contribution. But Vuk knew then, as a world-leading diplomat engaged in sustainable development, that success in saving the planet was going to depend on success of geopolitics. And whether we can be successful is still hanging in the balance. So we came together, you invited me kindly 10 years ago in this forum, this venue, where we celebrated your idea of launching CIRSD and this publication. Then a year after that, we discussed one of the most poignant and difficult topics in modern history, and that was the origins of World War I, something that this region knows all too well. And of course, the backdrop of that discussion that we had in 2014 was, can we avoid sleepwalking into disaster again in the 21st century? And who would have thought that we would be meeting again this evening when that question is actually front and center for the whole world, because I think it's a backdrop to our discussion, just one very sobering point, and I'm eager to speak with you tonight about it. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, which many of you will have heard of, in 1947 established something called the Doomsday Clock, which is also called the minutes to midnight clock. And the idea of these atomic scientists was that they knew back in 1947 that they had, through the brilliance of their science, created something that for the first time in human history could really destroy humanity. And they sensed that it was a danger unlike anything that humanity had ever experienced before, because while humanity is able to kill each other in large numbers and has done so throughout history, having a weapon that could end the planet was something different. And so they made this doomsday clock. And when they launched it in 1947, they put it at 7 minutes to midnight, 7 minutes to disaster. And over the years since 1947, the clock has generally moved a little closer to midnight because the weapons became more and more powerful. And because a few years ago they told the world that it's not just nuclear war, but it's environmental catastrophe that could also doom humanity. But at some points, such as the end of the Cold War, the hand was moved back from midnight several minutes. And for me, that's very poignant because what we're going to discuss tonight in my professional life started 34 years ago when I became an advisor in this region to Ante Markovic in Federal Yugoslavia in 1989, and to the Solidarity Movement in Poland, and to Mikhail Gorbachev, his economic team for the Soviet Union. And we thought then, 30 plus years ago, that the tensions would be reduced. And that Gorbachev, who for me is a hero, even though he's reviled by many in his own country, I think through a deep misunderstanding, but in any event, for me, he's a hero because he was a person of peace. And maybe that's in a way why the Soviet Union ended, because he did not want to use force to hold things together. He wanted to use persuasion. But be that as it may, his idea was that there could be a peaceful, common European home. That was his great idea. And I signed up for that. I thought that really is a wonderful idea and a wonderful way to spend one's effort and one's time. And I got stuck with that idea 34 years ago, and I'm still completely stuck with it today. So I'm deeply frustrated by what's happening. And what we're going to discuss a bit is how we got from those very optimistic days to today. But just to make the point, what was 7 minutes to midnight in 1947, and then was, I think, 12 or even more minutes to midnight when they put the hands back further from disaster, is now, as of last week, 90 seconds to midnight. What the scientists are saying to us is a minute and a half to disaster. And what they're conveying by their announcement last week is that we are on the threshold of nuclear war, again, for the first time in 60 years since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And in some ways more ominous now even than 60 years ago, because there's a hot war to start with. And this is a war between the United States and Russia, have no doubt, even though the soldiers dying in Ukraine are Ukrainian soldiers. The weapon systems and the intelligence and the sighting and